And the Gemara said, for that contradiction, it's two different rabbis. That was what the Gemara wanted to say. One's the Rabbi Yehuda, and one's the Rabbanan. And that's how we ended off yesterday.
Whether or not the branch
are the branches significant to define your location? Meaning to say, according to the Gemara now, if you're on the trunk of the tree and the branches, we are Yud Beis on the base, we are on 12b, second line from the top. And in the article, it's 12b, A, 12b1. If you're on the trunk of the tree, Mr. Haber, if someone's on the trunk of the tree, and let's say the trunk of the tree is inside Jerusalem. Dr. Navid, you hear the case? The trunk is inside, but the branches are outside. So one opinion says that if the trunk is inside and the branches are outside, you cannot eat the Maaseh Sheni on the trunk of the tree. Even though you're inside, the trunk is inside Jerusalem, inside, you're within the wall. But the fact that the branches are outside, your location will be defined by where the branches of this item will be defined by where the branches are. And if the branches of this is significant, and that will identify where you are.
But gives you
positioning of where you are. So if you're on the trunk, and the trunk is inside the city, but the branches are outside, you're outside. And therefore, you cannot eat the Maaseh Sheni on the trunk, because you can't eat Maaseh Sheni. What'd you say? Let's say it depends how the trunk is. Sometimes, right. Yeah, but sometimes let's say the trunk comes out in different sections. Right, that's true. But also sometimes depending on the trunk, the wideness of the trunk, sometimes it's going in a way that one part is wider than the other part. Good morning, Jake. Good morning, Nathan. Good morning, Jaime.
Morning.
Morning. So we're on 12b in the art scroll, second line from the top. So now the Gemara just concludes. There is the trunk of the tree. There was one opinion that says that the trunk of the tree will identify your position, where you are. And therefore, sorry, not the trunk, the branches. So if you could be on the trunk, but your location is where the branches are. So the branches are outside the city, you're considered outside, even though you're on the trunk inside the city. That's one opinion. And the other opinion is it's all about where you are. We don't look at the branches. If you're on the trunk and the trunk is inside, you're inside. You're on the branches are outside, you're outside. The trunk, the branches don't identify your location. That was the two opinions in the Gemara. And that's how we ended yesterday by saying it's not a contradiction. It's not the same rabbi contradicting himself. It's rather two different rabbis have two different opinions on the matter. That's how we ended yesterday.
Well, which one do we hold?
Okay, we're gonna see how the Gemara. Usually, when you have a dispute between the Rabbanan and someone else, Rabbanan are the majority opinion, the rabbis, and then you have the individual opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. So usually you would go with the rabbi's opinion. Well, let's see how what the Gemara says over here. So the Gemara continues. Second line from the top. Ema deshamet le Rabbi Yehuda gabi ma'aseh l'chumra. Maybe this idea that we found Rabbi Yehuda, that you go after the branches when it comes to ma'aseh, maybe this idea was only, he's saying he's concerned. Rabbi Yehuda perhaps has a question. How do you identify by ma'aseh? Do you identify by the actual location where you are? Or do you allow the branches to dictate your location? So maybe when we find Rabbi Yehuda making his statement, we only found Rabbi Yehuda making his statement when it comes to Maaseh Sheni. We found Rabbi Yehuda's statement that you go after the branches by the laws of Maaseh Sheni. We never found Rabbi Yehuda saying that statement regarding Ori Miklat. And what's bothering the Gemara is that if you're going to connect the dots and say, Rabbi Yehuda said his law by Maaseh Sheni, and you want to connect it to the same opinion of Rabbi Yehuda by Maaseh Sheni, he's the same author of the opinion that you go after the branches when it comes to city of refuge, they're not comparable. Because Maaseh Sheni has aspects of Chumrah, has aspects of being strict. And in two different situations. What's by Maaseh Sheni, there's a strictness that you can't eat Maaseh Sheni outside one area. You can't eat Maaseh Sheni outside Jerusalem. That type, that 10% has to be eaten in Jerusalem. The fruit is forbidden to be eaten outside Jerusalem. That's one strictness. Then we have another strictness. What's another law? Another law is that if the fruit is outside, if the fruit becomes inside the city, you can't redeem it. That's another law. So on the one hand, outside you can't eat it outside. Can't eat the fruit outside. You have to bring it inside. But once you brought the fruit inside, you can't redeem it onto coins. You have to eat that fruit once it's inside. The fruit. Let's say you had grapes, you had olives, and you separated that as tithe that you're going to bring to Jerusalem, to the Holy Land, to the Holy City. So if you're outside the Holy City, you can't eat it. You have to carry it with you to the Holy City. If you don't want to carry it with you, what do? You redeem it onto coins, and you bring the coins to the Holy City, and you purchase food over there in the Holy City. So, but once you entered the Holy City with the fruit that was Meiser, you're not allowed to now, if you want to decide, you know what, I want to redeem it. I don't want to get busy eating the food now. You know what, I want to go back home and I'll come back another time to eat the food. I can't go ahead and redeem it on coins. Once it enters the Holy City, I can't redeem it on coins. So now the Gemara says, yes. The Torah itself, the parasha itself tells us the basic laws, and the Gemara elaborates on the more details of the law. Now, so the Gemara says, by Maaseh Sheni, we could have a stringency on both ends. Now the Gemara is going to explain. Let's see the Gemara. When the trunk is inside and the branches, when the trunk is outside and the branches are inside. So what would be the chumrah? Here's the case. Let's get the case clearly. I have the trunk outside the city. Strictness. Chumrah is being strict. I have the trunk outside. The branch is inside. So if the branch is inside, if I will identify it by the branch, what strictness will it give me? It will give me a strictness that since the branch is inside, so it's as if the tree is inside. If it's inside, I can't redeem the fruit now. If I'm on the trunk of the tree and the trunk is outside and the branches are inside, since we're going to use the branches to identify your location, and we're going to say you're going to be strict that you can't redeem the fruit now that you're on the trunk of this tree, since the branches go inside. You wouldn't be able to eat it. We're not going to say because your branches are inside you can eat it, because at the end of the day, that will be a leniency to say that you consider it inside. But we're only going to say you're considered inside to create a stringency. What will be the stringency? I can't redeem the fruit now. If I'm on the trunk, I can't redeem the fruit. Because the trunk, so why can't I redeem it? You can redeem when it's outside, but since the branches are inside, we're going to be strict on you to say you have the status of inside just regarding strictness. Because your branches are inside, so now even though you're on the trunk outside, your status is inside regarding what? Regarding regarding redemption. You're considered inside and you can't redeem the fruit once you're inside the city. That's what the Gemara says. Just like if you would be on the branches itself, and the branches are inside the holy city, you can't redeem the fruit because you're inside. So so when you're on the trunk of the tree, and the trunk of the tree is outside the holy city, so you say you're outside. That's when you redeem the fruit, when you're outside. But since the branches of this tree, of this trunk, which is outside, is hovering inside, we're going to be strict on you, and we're going to say you can't redeem the fruit. Similarly, we're going to be strict. If the trunk is inside and the branch is outside, how we're going to be strict in that case? We're going to say that if the trunk is inside, but the branch is outside, we're going to say we're going to go after the branches to be strict, that it's as if you're outside and you can't eat the Ma'aser Sheni on the trunk of the tree. So if you would be on the trunk of the tree and the trunk of the tree is inside the old city, but the branches are going where? Outside, they're outside the city, we're going to be strict on you and we'll say, you can't eat the Ma'aser Sheni now being on the trunk of the tree. Why not? Because we're going to consider your location to being strict on you. We're going to consider you as if you are what? Outside the city. Why? Because Rabbi Yehuda perhaps is not sure. How do you identify the location of a person when how do you look at when you're on the trunk, if the branches are in a different location than the trunk? Do you say if you're on the trunk, we just look at where you are, or do we identify the trunk where you are by where the branches are? So he's not sure. So if you're not sure, so he's going to be strict. He's going to be strict and take the stricter approach because he doesn't want to do something wrong. When you're not sure if I could do this or I can't do this. I don't know. He doesn't know what status you should identify the trunk of the tree. So if you don't know what status you identify the trunk of the tree, so he takes a strict approach depending where the tree would be. Yes, yes. Right. Oh, I'm sorry about that. I didn't see that it was there. Sorry about that. The blessing should pour forth, Nathan.
Amen.
Yes, state it again, Ariel.
Anything yesterday about the city of refuge. The person cannot be on the trunk of the tree, but can keep on the branches. Therefore, we base the decision on the branches. But to eat the Ma'aser Sheni, it's just a matter of eating it. And the basic rules is to just eat it in Jerusalem.
Right. So this opinion, very good. So this opinion is not sure about. Do we say that Ma'aser Sheni is about being in the old city? So who cares? Who cares where the branches are? Correct. But now the Gemara says that maybe we're not only going to look at that aspect. Maybe that's not going to be maybe we would look at the fact where the branches are. Maybe that idea that we said yesterday, that even though we said that Ma'aser Sheni, the main point, you have to eat it in the whole old city. I understand, but the Gemara now is taking it, he's not sure. That should be the defining, how do you define the location? So the Gemara says, Nathan, thank you for your, okay, so the Gemara says, when the trunk is inside and the branch is outside, so the way, similar, just like you can't eat. If you're on the branch itself, if the branch is outside, we're going to go ahead and below Padilla, you can't eat it without redeeming it if it's outside. You cannot go ahead by the trunk, you cannot eat it without redemption if the branches are outside. That's what that would be the stringency that we're going to say. But the Gemara says, Ela gabe ori miklat. But a case of ori miklat, what's going to happen over here? Gabe ori miklat, you're telling me a leniency. Meaning to say, thank you, you got your exercise this morning, Nathan. You're telling me by Maisa Sheni, maybe Rabbi Yehuda is telling us to be strict. But we never found Rabbi Yehuda goes on record that you're going to create a leniency for the person. And now, by you applying Rabbi Yehuda's statement that what Rabbi Yehuda said by Maisa Sheni, you're applying it to City of Refuge, you have no right. We only found that Rabbi Yehuda said the only place Rabbi Yehuda went on record was by Maisa Sheni. That's the only place that we found he went on record. And when he spoke by Maisa Sheni, we have ability to explain his opinion that he's taking the strict approach. Why is he taking the strict approach? Because he's not sure how to identify the location of a person. Do you identify where you actually are, or do you identify your location when you're on the trunk? Maybe you're identified by the branches. Maybe your location is identified by where the branches are. That's perhaps, he's not sure. But to create a leniency, to say that he'll be lenient by Ori Miklat, that you have no right, you have no precedent that he ever gave a leniency. So how could you say that he's the author? Morning, Mike. How could you say he's the author of the opinion that's lenient by Ori Miklat? Because we found by Ori Miklat, it says you go after the branches, right? We brought yesterday, it says Yerushalayim, you go after the branches, and Ori Miklat, you go after the branches. How do you know that this rabbi, would be the rabbi to be the one to say you should go after the branches? Because that's going to create a leniency. What will be the leniency? Look what the Gemara says. Elagabi Ori Miklat, when the trunk is outside and the branches are inside, okay? The branches are inside the Ori Miklat. The branches are in the city of refuge. He's standing on the bark, on the trunk of the tree. So if you're going to tell me you go after the branches, so then you're going to be strict in this sense. You're not going to allow the Goel Hadam to kill him, right? It's a leniency to kill the guy. To kill a Rotzeach, to kill somebody, if you're not sure, is a lenient thing to be allowed the person to be killed. So if the guy is on the trunk of the tree and the murderer who killed unintentionally is on the trunk of the tree outside the city of refuge, but the branches are where? Inside the city of refuge, and then you say you can't touch him. Why can't you touch him? Don't touch him. Forbidden for you to touch him. You can't kill him. Why can't you kill him? Because the branches are hovering into the city of refuge. He's safe. So that's going to be a stringency on Adam. Morning, Yosef Tzaddik. That's going to be a stringency on the Gol Adam, that he can't touch him. But vice versa, the Gemara says that when he's on the when he's on the trunk inside and the branch outside, and you're going to say he goes after the branch, what is that going to mean? If he's on the trunk inside the city of refuge, you're considering him outside the city. You're going to give permission for him to kill him. That's going to be a what? A leniency. We never found Rabbi Yehuda said that. So how do you have a right to say? How do you know to say he's the author of that right? And that's what the Gemara says. The Gemara says, when the trunk is inside and the tree and the branch is outside, the same way if the branch is outside and he could kill him when he's on the branch, that nobody questioned that at this point. Everybody held we could kill him on the branch if he's outside on the branch. So therefore you're telling me that if you go after the branch, the trunk's inside, the branch outside, you're going to say you could kill him even though he's on the trunk inside. So the Gemara says, he's inside. He's actually inside the city. He's on the trunk. So how do you know to say that Rabbi Yehuda would be so lenient to allow you to go ahead and kill this guy who's on the trunk, when he's inside the city of refuge. You're telling me the fact that Rabbi Yehuda said by Maisa Sheni, a law, you're going to apply that he's also the author by Ari Miklat. But maybe Maisa Sheni was only a stringency, Rabbi Yehuda says, you go after the branches. But going after the branches by Maisa Sheni, we can explain it means you go after the branches to be strict. But where do we ever find that Rabbi Yehuda would say you go after the branches to be lenient? That we never found. If we found, so you have no right to say he's the author of that lenient opinion.
Or he knows the position. He knows the position of what we said, so he doesn't have to be strict. Lenient, he's not being stringent.
Right, but we never found that we only found Rabbi Yehuda on record by a case that has where we could explain he means to be stringent.
Would it change if like most of the no.
How to identify the guy? So if that's the case, no, again, but if you're not sure how to identify the guy, so then then the Gemara is going to say, so why should you identify the guy? So therefore, that we have how do we know that he's going to say that over here, and he's going to take that opinion to be lenient over here? Why, if he doesn't know over there, how do you know that he's going to know over here?
Because the Hasuki is more clear as far as the thought.
Yeah, but now we're saying he's going to be lenient, that if he's on the trunk of the tree inside and the branches outside, we're going to allow him to kill him on the trunk. That's a big leniency. Yes, Nathan, sorry.
Does it matter like if most of the branches are inside and there's one branch that's flopping over like the city? Is there?
Right,
Is
so
there a
that's
majority?
right. That's a great question, which Nathan is asking how do you identify, you see, go after the branches, but if the branches of a tree are usually on both sides, then do you go after the majority? That's a great question. So what we could learn the Gemara is that the Gemara is discussing the case when, you cut off the branches on one side and all the branches are on one side, or either outside or inside. But your case, Nathan, would be a good question to look up. How would the Gemara interpret one of your own if there's mixed branches? Would you say go after the majority when the Gemara says you go after the branch? It's a great question, Nathan. Because the trunk of a tree could have different layers. Sometimes they have the trunk, it widens, it's narrow. They have a little ledge that should be, let's say if it gets smaller as you go.
That's why you kill him, because if the branch is coming out, he technically shouldn't be outside. He's using the branch to be outside, so you can kill him. But as far as the Masr,
But here we're talking about the branch. We're talking about the location of the guy. He's on the trunk of the tree, and the branch is outside. It's not that we're talking about killing him when he's on the branch. We're talking now killing, identifying, because the Gemara at this point is saying that the branch, if the guy is outside, the trunk is inside, the branch is outside, you can kill the guy on the branch. If you go after the branch, if you go after the branch.
My question is there a wall that surrounds here in the cloud that people can't see you unless you go on top of the tree that they say, oh, there's on the branch?
No,
I mean, if you're on the trunk, they can't see you unless there's a
I mean, we're talking about there is the city of refuge. There's a place there's a marking wherever you have 2,000 amot. You're safe. 2,000. You have 2,000 amot outside the city. Yeah, there's no problem. We're going to see the Gemara going to talk more about this type of case. You're able to see him, no problem. So the Gemara says, what does the Gemara answer? So the Gemara says like this: Amar Rava. So Rava says, "B'karo t'kuliyama lo pligi de lo motzi kotele." The Gemara says the following: If he's inside the city, he's on the trunk of the tree, and the trunk of the tree is inside, and the branches are outside. Nobody is going to say that you have a right to go ahead and kill the guy. We're not gonna say the Gemara, no, we're not gonna say that you go after the branches to be lenient, to kill the guy when he's on the trunk of the tree inside. The branches that are outside will create your location that you can kill the guy when he's on the trunk. We're not gonna say that. If he's inside the city of refuge, we never found this leniency that the branches of the tree will be able to identify you, to allow you to say that since, even though he's on the trunk inside, the branches are outside, you're outside. No, if you're on the trunk and you're inside, you're inside. But so what is the machlok? What is the dispute? Koi benofo. If let's say you're on the branch, let's say the guy is on the branch. The branch is outside. The trunk is inside. And he could shoot an arrow. The Gol Hadam, the relative, had the ability to shoot an arrow to the guy or throw a rock at the guy. If the guy is on the branch and the branch is outside, he could do that. If he's on the trunk inside, I don't care, the branch is outside. Can't touch it. Everybody. Now the Gemara is going to say, now it's right. The Gemara is saying everybody would hold. It's nothing to, the branches will not be able to identify your location. If you're in location A, if you're on the trunk, the branch is outside, we're not going to give you the status of outside. But now, what will be to be lenient to kill the guy, right? So now the Gemara is saying a different. We're not. The Mishnah is saying that the case that you.
The Mishnah says you go by the branch. Yeah, exactly. He's on the branch outside, you kill him.
Say it again. It's not. The city's not fenced, but there's where the city is. So look. So if it's under the branch and the branch is outside, very good. The branch is outside, you could kill him. The branch is outside, you could kill him, even though the trunk is inside. The Mishnah.
No, what if you're on the trunk?
No.
If you're on the trunk
And the branch is outside.
and the trunk is inside, so therefore you're on the inside and the branch is outside, you cannot kill him. That's according to the Gemara. Okay, so you have good. So the case, so good. So tomorrow we're gonna address that point with how do you explain this answer of the Gemara with the language of the Mishnah. Okay, we're gonna get to that tomorrow. Yes, we'll stay tuned tomorrow. Have a great day, everybody. Yosef, have a great day.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Great day, everybody.
Yes.